Hello, everyone. This is Joe Nardolillo, collegiate member at large. We're going to get started shortly, so just hang tight for now. We're just getting everything technically set up, and then as we get a couple more minutes, we'll get situated. Just 1 second, and we will get started. Okay, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm just changing one more quick thing on the screen sharing ability with that. So to get everybody a little bit oriented, for those of you, this is your first time using GoToWebinar, this is a server basically to kind of share some ideas and talk about Kappa Psi. First off, if you're going to look, if you guys want to ask a question at any point, you have the ability to raise your hand. You also have, that happens, I can unmute you and we can talk a bit and let you share anything, as well as if you have a question at any time, you can always write in to the questions box, and we're going to have some polls going on as well, or a chat, whatever works best for you all. I'm having a slight difficulty with my notes, so we will go ahead and that. Sorry about that in advance, and we will get started. So welcome to the Pledging Best Practices webinar in combination of the Collegiate Development and the Pledge Development Committees. So today we're going to be going through a couple things, and we have a panel of myself and two others today. So we're going to start by going ahead and introducing everybody. So to get started, all right, Jacqueline. Oh, here we go. Sorry about that, Jacqueline.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening in. My name is Jacqueline Punches. I'm in my 4th year at University of Illinois Chicago, Rockford campus. I was initiated into the Epsilon Rho chapter during my 1st year, and I served as secretary during my 2nd and 3rd year. Currently, I am a member of the Pledging Development Committee.
Hi, my name's Carly. I went to school at Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa, so graduated from Beta Chi, and now I'm in Denver, Colorado, doing a PGY1 residency, and I'm serving as the co-chair of the Pledge Development Committee, so the International Committee. And then in college, I served as the member at large, a pledge trainer, as well as the secretary of our chapter.
All right. Thank you, guys. As I've introduced myself, my name is I am the collegiate member at large. I currently am a PGY1 pharmacy resident at Albuquerque Indian Health Center in New Mexico. Through my chapter, I was a rush chair, a chapter, I was SATRAP of Northeast Province, and now I'm fortunate enough to be on the International Executive Committee. So thank you for all attending today. So as with any presentation, for objectives, so we want to understand Kappa Psi hazing and proper risk management practices to make sure that your chapters are aligned and practicing properly. We want to evaluate a couple examples of rush and pledge events, share some ideas about successful events, and going forward, having you guys sit here, listen, and create a plan to relay your thoughts to your own chapter. So,
all right, so just some background. Basically, the pledging process should teach potential brothers about the values and history of our fraternity. Make sure it's clear to potential brothers what we're doing and why we do it. That should always be explained to them at the beginning as well as throughout the process. And make sure to utilize your GCD during the pledging season to shed some light on the process and to show that brotherhood really is for life. So just to show why we care, here are some statistics on pledging. More than half of college students involved in clubs, teams, and organizations experience hazing. About 50% of students that experienced at least one hazing behavior came from a service, fraternity, or sorority. And only 39% of students were introduced to anti-hazing policies when joining teams or organizations. So overall, our goal is to make every event rooted in growing our brotherhood and relationships stronger, which we should start this from the very beginning of the process. So what is hazing? Hazing is any activity expected of someone joining or participating in a group that humiliates, degrades, abuses, or endangers them, regardless of a person's willingness to participate. And risk management is defined as taking the appropriate measures to minimize this risk and to assure the safety and well-being of all the members as well as non-members that are interacting with the chapter, province, or fraternity in any way. So Kappa Psi's policy on hazing, there's a zero tolerance policy regarding hazing. It's required that all chapters present the hazing PowerPoint early on in the pledging process. We also fill out a form at the beginning. It's all about the brotherhood and promoting our professionalism. So we have to make sure that we really emphasize what we do as a chapter, as a province, as a fraternity to all pledges. So before planning any events for pledges, make sure you're educating the pledges and the brothers right away about the hazing, risk management, alcohol, any pictures, social media policies that you do have. If you do this earlier on, it makes it easier so that everyone understands right at the beginning what the expectations are. Make sure to have pledges and brothers sign a contract stating that they will abide by these rules. And every chapter should keep this on file. Throughout the whole pledging process, make sure you allow one-on-one time to get feedback and see how the pledges are doing. Provide a way for pledges to submit any concerns that they have about pledging, and make sure to utilize the big and little relationships so that pledges feel more comfortable coming to their bigs if they have any concerns. I know one thing that we do at our chapter is we have an anonymous email that we provide to pledges as well as brothers, so that at any time during the process they can come forward and kind of explain what's going on, what their concerns are, so that they don't feel like they can't tell anyone.
All right. And just going off that before we head into this poll question, I think that's exactly right. I think having an open dialogue and having people feel comfortable is on all parts from the brothers, whether that be the pledge trainers and the regent, just having them be that go-to person and having them have a way that pledges feel like they can come to you with any concerns is exactly the pledging attitude that we want to have and portrayed for our brothers, future brothers, I should say. Okay, so we're going to do a poll question here. So if you go to your poll section, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to activate the first one and launch it for you. Okay, so what is your chapter's process for assessing risk prior to an event? We talk about it at our executive council meetings. Every event has been going on for years, so we continue it without a lot of thought. Our College of Pharmacy approves every event. Knowing the rules is important so you can find the loopholes. And then also at any time, like I said, if you do want something you want to share, just go ahead and raise your hand and we can talk about that or experience that you guys have had. We definitely want this to be an open dialogue type setting, and we're going to have a bunch of time for questions at the end, as well as this will be recorded for anybody that wasn't able to attend or for you to reference again. Give this another second. Okay, so luckily nobody said D, knowing the rules is important so you can find the loopholes. The majority of people said we talk about it at our executive committee meeting beforehand. Some of you are getting everything approved by your College of Pharmacy, and some of us are very frank and say that events have been going on for years, so we don't really think about it anymore. So this is an opportunity with every new executive committee and every new pledging season that I think there's definitely things that people are rooted in tradition, but on the same way, you have to look every year, reevaluate, see what you can improve on, maybe ask outgoing brother or pledges from the years before if they had any feedback, and just a better way to always be looking at your pledging process and seeing how ways you can improve. We're going to be talking about the approval of events in a little bit when we talk about utilizing your GCD, but everything you're doing would be something that would be acceptable for your college to know about. Doing anything that's secret or something known as an unofficial event is something that Kappa Psi does not approve and does not condone. So if it's not, it's almost like the rule of saying, if you wouldn't share it with your grandma, then you shouldn't be doing it. So if you shouldn't share with the College of Pharmacy, then this is not something that you should be doing. And we're going to go into some more logistics of that shortly as well. And with that, I will also leave it open to say if anybody does want to raise their hand and talk about an instance that they've had or a way for them to say how they've kind of come over approved an event? I'll give you a second for that. If not, no worries. We can talk some more at the end. Okay. So this is me as well. So the role of, was this me? Carly, sorry about that. Or is this I will go high. Okay. Yep. Sorry, I lost my notes right here for a second. So the role of GCD in pledging. So a lot of chapters don't necessarily utilize their GCD to the fullest potential. Your GCD, meaning your Grand Council Deputy. So they are somebody that should be alongside with you throughout this process. They are usually have been a brother for a long period of time. They may have been here through different phases of chapters, different regents, different executive committees. So they may know a little bit more of the consistency portion of the chapter as well. So first off, one of the best practices, showcasing your GCD early in the semester shows brotherhood is for life, and also shows that they have an advocate, that there is somebody in your college of pharmacy who's there to support you, whether that be a faculty advisor or a GCD. They're there to support you and to assist you as well. So encouraging them to know each pledge individually, whether that means they're part of your meetings, whether they come to a meeting, discuss who they are, and have them share their own experiences too. Have them say something if there's something that they want to talk about their experience as a pharmacist or as a Kappa Psi brother. Using them in this way is a great way that they're there. And sometimes they just need to be asked. Sometimes they need you to make that first step to invite them to a meeting or invite them to an event. And that can go for all Kappa Psi faculty members or graduates as well. So a very important thing that the executive committee has been pushing this year is that each rush and pledge event must be approved by the GCD prior to the event occurring, utilizing the Kappa Psi Risk Management Assessment Form. This can be found on kappapsi.org, and this is really to make sure that the GCD is in the loop on what's going on. It means that you guys have taken a step beforehand to evaluate and think about all of the potential risk that's happened or it could happen from an event. So doing this proactively rather than reactively is a really important thing that could prevent a lot of headaches down the line and really have you guys the outlet to evaluate something, and having that outside perspective from a GCD outside of your traditional student perspective, having the faculty or GCD perspective as well can be very important. So I highly recommend at the beginning of pledging, before you start, do these for each event. Do and that you guys are all going to be getting together, and then be able to take a look at them, have your GCD look and say what they think would be best. So as always, an important thing is that your chapter, and your GCD may not be necessarily legally liable for violations of risk management or hazing crimes. Many times, if you look at the news nowadays, there's a bunch of things about pledging, hazing, things that have gone wrong. People have genuinely died from having these instances of hazing occur, and people are liable. People are legally liable, whether that be another brother or also a faculty member who knew about it and didn't do anything about it. So I have a question as well. 1 second, I'm just answering a question. Yeah, so one of the GCDs had mentioned as well, they sign all risk assessment forms prior to events occurring, which is exactly the best practice and highly recommended for all chapters. Okay. Next up.
All right, so as we kind of talked about earlier, Kappa Psi has a zero tolerance when it comes to hazing, but along with that, and kind of in the spirit of risk management, brothers and pledges should not drink together at any time during the pledging process. not just at Kappa Psi events. And so as active brothers, I feel like it's more of our responsibility to make sure that's known. It's obviously important to educate your pledges that this is a policy that Kappa Psi brothers follow, but they're going to follow your example. If you can think back to when you were a pledge and maybe how scared you were, how you just kind of took the active lead in a lot of initiatives, whether it's a philanthropy event or whatever else have it, the active brother has to be the one driving those positive behaviors that we're trying to get. And then I liked Joe saying as far as grandma, but if you think it breaks the risk management policy, it probably does. Always err on the side of caution and be safe about making those decisions. So here's some pledging don'ts that we've kind of covered, but kind of the ones that maybe don't seem as intuitive are kind of talking about controversial things, such as religion and politics. So if you're asking pledges to do a certain thing and you're mandating it, and maybe that conflicts with someone's religious beliefs, you have to take that into consideration and have a way for them to complete the activity together as a pledge class, but not break any of their uphold beliefs and values. Another thing that can sometimes come off is how we're talking to our pledges. And so showing a clear power differential isn't how we want our brotherhood to be. It's not an I'm better than you or you did this wrong. It's a here's a bigger picture and how we can all come together to kind of solve this problem. And so those are kind of two ways that pledges might feel ostracized from actives and things like that at events or just in their pledge class, and how we're talking to each other. That may not seem necessarily risk management, but how you can have that conversation and convey messages is an important part of how you're making that pledge feel at different events throughout the year. So here's some kind of tips on how we kind of put all these don'ts practices into do's and do this so that this doesn't happen. As Jacqueline mentioned earlier, setting those clear expectations from the beginning with brothers and pledges, signing that hazing contract, utilizing your risk management chairs in chapter. So I know our chapter used to do like little scenarios, and it would be, you know, pledge talking to an active skit or whatever about different topics as far as drinking or maybe sexual misconduct and things like that. And so having some of these examples brought forward, talking about it, creating a culture that talks about kind of some of these issues can prevent them from getting slipped under the rug until they become a bigger issue. Another great thing that we have in Kappa Psi is our Big Littles, or Pledge Dad, Pledge Kid, and kind of making events around fostering that relationship, whether it be a cookie baking contest or whatever else. Having those conversations between littles and bigs can help facilitate an outlet for those pledges. The other thing is just providing resources. I know earlier it was mentioned to have an anonymous email if pledges or actives have a problem going to the GCD, having those trusted kind of outlets. There's a couple more examples on there as far as having someone in the pledge class be like a liaison to chapter as far as how they feel about events coming up or events in the past. And it's just a really good way for pledges to reflect on that and kind of have a voice in chapter as well on some of the things that they're either asked to accomplish or that they're working towards achieving in that process of pledging. And so we know it's not a perfect world out there. And so if your chapter can have policies and plans in place for when these things kind of do come up, these potential situations that could become risk management. So drinking with pledges, as I mentioned earlier, educating the actives that they're role models here in this situation and that most likely the pledge is going to accept the behavior of the active. It's a lot easier for them to do that than to stand up against them. I mean, in an ideal world, we would hope that they would not participate and also realize that, but also realizing that the active is kind of the role model in this situation. Having some of those resources I just talked about so that when pledges do feel uncomfortable or harassed or in any event, they have someone to go to, whether it's the GCD, the regent, the pledge class president, and then just talking about behavior during events. Again, like not yelling at pledges and being warm and inviting. And I'm sure you guys don't have all of these problems, but throughout the year, different things can come up where pledges may feel ostracized from the active brothers. And so by talking about these things, it's brought to the forefront of everyone's mind.
Okay, so as we've kind of alluded to, every situation isn't going to go perfect. And as much as we like to have all these plans in place, sometimes things may go wrong. And as we've said, having a plan rather than not really knowing what to do is the best case scenario. So report any risk management violations to your GCD. So whether that means it was a blatant violation that you know something was wrong, or something that's just not sitting that right with you, something that you feel could be an issue. And this is something that all brothers should be aware of, not just an executive committee member of their chapter. If they feel like something's not right, most of the times it usually isn't. Or even that being said, we can talk about it, and working through it and telling your GCD and having that person in the loop is much better than trying to handle it internally, having things spiral out of control, and then going to a GCD when it's too late. On that same note, feel free to always reach out to Grand Counselor Jason Milton with any questions on risk management policy, run a scenario by him, and that goes for honestly any member of the executive committee. All of us are more than happy to talk to you and answer any questions that you may have, as it really is important to utilize the resources around you, whether that be your province, whether that be the International Executive Committee, any other of Kappa Psi standing committees. Having somebody and asking beforehand can save you a lot of questions for down the line. So as I said already, do not handle on your own. Utilize the help and be honest and be open. A lot of times experiences come where people run into issues when they try to hide things, and people run into issues when they aren't open and honest and can have a conversation about things that have happened rather than trying to brush things under the rug, where although it may not seem significant to one person, can have a big impact and be very significant to somebody else. So my committee, the Collegiate Development Committee, has compiled some of their chapter events. Just wanted to talk a little bit about these to give you guys some ideas. And from here, we'll actually even open up afterwards and have some people share their ideas or something that they think is really interesting that their chapter has done, whether we can see if we'll do it right at the end of this part. So obviously, there's going to be many different facets you're going to want to hit during pledging. So one thing for sure, philanthropy. Some things that people have recommended were doing a roadside cleanup or like an adopt a road, and cards for the elderly, having brothers get together, not only as a bonding event for them, but actually whether that be around the holiday time and doing positive things for the community. And with that, working for a food kitchen, doing some sort of event in your local community, having a helping hand, and also reach out and read. Our national philanthropy effort is a great way to get brothers involved in instilling that idea, or I should say pledges involved, instilling the idea that Kappa Psi cares about philanthropy right from the get-go. And I know what some chapters do is they actually have the pledges organize an event like this themselves, gives them the task and lets them say one of their responsibilities as a group is to organize a philanthropy event. So that's a great way to kind of balance, give them some self-initiative while also getting them involved in thinking about ways and build a long-term brotherhood. So some brotherhood events, something, and this kind of goes right into bonding as well. Intramural sports, getting people together outside of a classic kind of learning environment, doing some things such as bowling, trivia nights. Some chapters even recommended a pumpkin patch outing and a pumpkin carving contest that would be with a big little event, going back and forth and having that ability to bond with somebody else in their chapter, pairing people up, and then a holiday cookie exchange. All of these things are great ideas that are what gives Kappa Psi that extra bit of feel, I think, more than a regular organization. You're building a brotherhood. You're not just building a group of people. You're building this feelings that are going to last all throughout their pharmacy school experience and hopefully for many years to come after. And instilling those memories along with Kappa Psi are some of the best things that you can do early on. And people will always remember the pledging events they did where they really got to connect with somebody else and got to learn from somebody and really got to know both the new brothers and each other. So a lot of typical getting to know you events. So kind of almost those icebreaker types people do meet your match, or like a speed dating type scenario where they go around. They have prompted questions that they go through, and they'll go from person to person, almost like a fun fact, or ways that you can something that wouldn't necessarily meet the eye, ways for people to kind of get that deeper meaning connection and find their common ground. And it may be a fast-paced way, and it's a good way for people to meet each other pretty early. And a Meet the Brothers introduction, so people will come periodically to introduce themselves to the group, whether that be starting off with executive committee positions and some hobbies, interests. Interviews is another great tool that people use a lot of times, and just having a facilitated way to break the ice right off the bat can make people feel a little bit better and a little less awkward, and break some of that tension, as we were talking. So professionalism. So of course, being a professional fraternity, we want to instill both values of the future of pharmacy as well as professionalism. That is a great way to get people this feeling from day one. So a peer review CV workshop, and this is actually a great opportunity to involve some graduates in your chapter as well. Some of your local grads to say, hey, would you like to review this for the pledges? And I know this chapter teaches them how to build it from scratch because they're new P1s and have never learned how to do this before. Some situational interviewing, so going on interviews for a job, a residency, all of it is based in a scenario, and all of it is very reflecting on your own past experiences. And having people learn that early on is only going to help them throughout their entire pharmacy career. And then also some roundtables, whether that be for individual topics in the chapter, having subject experts from a chapter, as well as individual brothers, whether that be another time, a great way to involve grads, have people cover different topics of pharmacy, different career paths that might be going on. All of these are kind of ways that my committee had recommended, but this is only the tip of the iceberg. And there's so many ways that you can get potential events to go. And with that, at this time, if there's anybody that thinks they have a really awesome event or something really interesting that they do that's pretty unique, feel free to raise your hand, and I'd be really happy to unmute you guys and share something that your chapter does that you think is pretty unique as a pledge event or even a rush event. I'm counting on somebody here. Oh, I got somebody. Hold on. All right. All right. Jake, you want to talk about it? Hold on, I'll see if I can unmute you, and we will. Jake?
Sorry, bro.
Jake?
Dude, look. Hey.
All right, so you want to share a little bit more about that?
Oh, you can hear me?
Yep, we can hear you good.
Oh, cool. I just put in there I don't have a mic. All right, cool. Yeah, so some rush event that we kind of just came up with this year was the International Food Festival. You know, a lot of us are, we're from different countries, and we all like to just come together. And at this rush event, we had the brothers bring kind of like a homemade cooked meal, and obviously invited the new potentials, during rush week to come and enjoy this fellowship event that we're putting on. We had cornhole, we had a huge giant Jenga, but obviously the main part was, or the best part was the food. We had food from like everybody brought something special. It was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's creating two ways at once. You're not only learning about each other, but you're bonding. You have a social event too, so that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else have anything really cool that they like to do? Oh, somebody else. Alex, here we go. Got you. Alex?
Oh, can you hear me, Joe?
Yep, all good.
All right, hey, Joe. So something we just started this year was a food drive in front of a supermarket. So as you know, a lot of retail pharmacies are, in supermarkets, and that gets you to know the management. So you kind of ask the management if you could hold a food drive in front of them, especially since rushing or pledging events tend to be in the fall semester. So it's the holiday season. People love to, you just kind of ask people when they're coming in to buy extra non-perishables. I'm from Epsilon Chi, which is the University of Utah, so we work with the Utah Food Bank. They kind of give suggestions on what kind of foods they want, and we recently just did ours, and we were able to raise 650 pounds of food in like 3 hours.
That's awesome. That's a perfect example. No, thank you for sharing. All right. Anybody else before we move on? And we're going to have some time for questions at the end too, if anybody thinks of something or wants to come up or build off somebody else's. So, all right. So with that, I'm going to open up the second poll question. So thinking about what we were just talking about in a way, what are some type of events that your chapter does most? And you can select multiple of these just to kind of want to get a little gauge of the audience and see what everybody thought and what your chapter does most. So we have philanthropy, brotherhood, getting to know you, professional, and history events. And again, if anything's outside of this realm, and we're more than happy to hear about it. All right, let's go for another couple more seconds. All right. So we have tied. We have 82% of you are doing philanthropy and brotherhood events. About 70% of you are doing getting to know you events. About 50% or so are doing professional, and 17% of you are also doing history events. So yeah, you guys seem like you're kind of covering your bases, and that's great. I do challenge you to think outside the box, think outside of your normal realm of possibilities and what you guys usually do. And even one new event per year can be something that sticks and works and can move forward for not only your time throughout your chapter, but for many years to come after. That being a new professional event, a new history event. And by history event, I mean a way to learn Kappa history, and more so than just a traditional lecture series. Have them actively think, have them look and see what a best way or an interesting quiz or something like that. So great, awesome. Thank you for participating. Next off, I will pass it off.
So we're just gonna go through a case example. I'll read it and then we'll have some discussion, follow-up questions. So feel free to jump in as we kind of go through those questions. So members from a chapter organize a BYOB event at the chapter house around Halloween, to which both members and pledges are invited. While it is not at all required to attend, it had good attendance from members, pledges, and guests who were all dressed in Halloween costumes. At the event, one of the members began to vomit after he had consumed a large amount of alcohol. A group of members went to the member who had gotten sick to ensure he was okay and got him home safely. While it turned out that brother was not in more serious danger, other members were concerned about the safety of brothers in the future. So what do you guys think? Were any risk management policies violated? Why or why not?
Somebody wants to participate. Here. Oh, no, that was somebody else from before. So we can, if we need to.
Go for it. What does Joe think?
Joe thinks there's definitely a couple in there. So obviously, alcohol policy right off the bat. It's honestly just, well, first off, house party is always has a very negative connotation that could potentially happen, whether that be for drinking, and especially drinking in general is always something you want to stand clear of, and it's just better safe than sorry. Whether that be people who are brothers and pledges beforehand, meaning that if they knew each other before pledging, this is a time that we want to try to abstain from that relationship, even for the couple weeks or months that pledging is. It just is a power differential that isn't something that we want to promote as a fraternity and as an organization. So, yeah. Then we can go back to the case if we need to as well. Okay. Jacqueline, do you have anything to add?
I think you got it, Joe.
I think it was really good. I know the last sentence isn't really conclusive, but it kind of said that members were concerned about this behavior in the future. So thinking about even, I know the poll question towards the beginning, some people, I don't remember the percentage, shows that we're continuing events every year just because it's tradition. But if there are concerns that it could be risk management, breaking those policies, considered hazing, anything along those lines, that we're bringing that into conversation. And so I think that's the biggest thing that we can do is have a culture that talks about our risk management policy and how we're abiding by those rules and involving our GCD in situations. And then if something were to happen, like we talked about earlier, having those options and resources known so that we know where to bring these to come about, and have future conversations to prevent these events in the future.
Cool. Are we good here, or do you want to keep going through all the questions, Carly?
I'm okay. I don't think we're going to get much raised hand here.
Okay, yeah. So with that, of course, just adding to that any additionally, so it's always, and Carly did a great job, and Jacqueline has done great covering all of this so far, but just, you never know what's going to happen, and you need to anticipate it. You need to anticipate scenarios. You need to anticipate what could go wrong and take that step back and say, is this the best idea, or what could we do better to prepare for this?
So I just kind of wanted to bring this up. It should be coming soon. We're just kind of going through it one last time with the International Executive Committee, but the Pledge Development Committee has compiled a document that was information that each chapter had the opportunity to submit to, as far as how big your pledge class is, how involved are your GCDs, what events are you doing. And so it's kind of all inclusive and allows you to kind of look through each chapter and see what they've done in the past. And then it also has contact information for that chapter, so it's segregated out by each chapter, so that you could contact them and learn about their mistakes and figure out, oh, if they did that, what was their budget for that event, and really help you kind of have a basis. And so I think it's a really great tool that you can utilize if you're a less developed chapter, so maybe you haven't been running Russia pledges that often, or maybe you're one of those chapters that is very, it's been going on for a long time and very rooted in tradition and needs to kind of reassess some of their events now at this time and are kind of looking for some fresh ideas to bring in. So we should have that posted soon here. We're just waiting for that, so I'll kind of go through.
Awesome. So with that, one of the things that we really wanted to do with this webinar is give you guys an outlet to ask any questions that you may have. We also do have Grand Vice Regent Christy Askew and Grand Counselor Jason Milton on the line as well. So we're more than happy to open it up to them if you have any questions for them directly. And I'm volunteering her as we're here now, but I know Deanna McDaniel, the chair of the GCD committee, is also on the call as well. So if you have any questions about any of this stuff, we are more than happy, and this is your opportunity. Right. I think I got one. Give me 1 second. Oh, no, false alarm. All right. Any questions that you all may have? Like I said, use this opportunity to ask anything. Oh, we got one. Okay. All right. So the question was, actually, I'm just going to open it up so you can answer it. 1 second. Make it easier. Not just listen to me the whole time. Okay, here we go. You are live. Yoko?
Yeah. So I just had a question about like the hazing and being like humiliated, you know? I understand that like sometimes it could be subjective. So I was just wondering how we can like distinguish that from person to person.
For sure. Do Carly or Jacqueline, do you guys want to take this one, or do you want me to take it?
Yeah, I can jump in. So when I was a pledge trainer, I think we actually had this situation. We had someone who was maybe just a little bit more sensitive. And I think what it came down to in her situation for each event, whether, you know, it was philanthropy or we're asking them to attend an active event to help fundraise or whatever it was. I think she just needed more explanation. And so I think that maybe the first time you need to identify like what is making them feel uncomfortable, and then addressing that for every subsequent event that may have not even like anything related to risk management. Maybe, like you said, it might not be anything that you think is breaking the hazing policy or risk management, but if they're feeling uncomfortable, it's something you need to address. And I think that goes back to having those resources. So does the person who feels uncomfortable know where they can go, whether it's the pledge trainer, the pledge class president, their dad or their big. So identifying, kind of setting up those resources in the beginning, and then identifying how you can prevent that problem in the future. And if Joe or Jacqueline or anyone else on the call has anything else to add, jump in.
Yeah, no, I think
just to go off of.
Go ahead, Jacqueline.
Sorry. Just to go off of that, I know I mentioned this earlier, but we've had some scenarios in the past where pledges have felt uncomfortable, and I know it really has helped us that we offer an anonymous email, so that even though it's open up to pledges and brothers, if pledges post something to there and it is directed towards someone or some event, we can get together in our executive meetings or general meetings, and we talk about what the situation was, and so that we can try and improve that for the future.
Exactly. I think everybody's hit a lot of the nails on the head. Just with that, I would also always go with the mindset that the pledge trainers are the pledges advocates. They are people who are supposed to be coaching them through this whole process. They are the ones who work to get them ready for being a brother. So having them be that outlet and having them be the way, be the approachable ones, be the ones to come to, can then always give the pledges that outlet, knowing that they have somewhere to go, and them to understand where they go if they do have an issue first is important as well. All right, we do have another question. Raul, I will open it up to you. Give me 1 second. I will turn your mic on. All right. All right. I think you just went off, actually. Oh, wait, there we go. Raul?
Hello?
Yep, you're good.
Hi, so I was just wondering, what were some suggestions for events aside from like lectures or quizzes to kind of convey, tradition or history?
So yeah, I'll start off with this one. So what my chapter had done when I was regent back then, way back when now it feels like, they actually did a lot of active learning. And if you ever look into teaching theory now, that's kind of how they say people get more things out of events rather than just sitting in a lecture type series. So they would lecture 1 week, and then the following week they would have a quiz, and then they would learn a new material lecture style. But with that, they did team-based quizzes. They had almost fun games, Jeopardy style type questions, ways that you may start off with a lecture or kind of be the front loading, and then afterwards you can do some discussion type questions. You can do some team-based team building type learning activities while still being there, whether that be a wager like a Jeopardy style, just a way for them to come together while still thinking a little more like that. Carly or Jacqueline, you guys have anything to add?
Yeah, our chapter also kind of, each week you have different things to kind of learn, and then we would have the pledges, like I just remember around like Thanksgiving, we had them kind of incorporate their learnings that week into like a funny poster, and so like a lot of them drew turkeys or, whatever else, and we're able to present that to active brothers, and it was like very like cohesive bonding experience because you give, 4 or 5 people in a group, and they get to come up with, they get to express their creativity, they get to incorporate, I think they were given a prompt of like pick one of the pillars and what that means in your life or something along those lines, and they got to run with it and have fun bonding doing that activity as well. So the more you can like incorporate, as Joe just kind of said, the active learning into an activity, I think they were really proud of their posters and being funny and stuff too, and it was really fun to see.
Great. Jacqueline, if you don't have anything to add? which is completely fine. Does anybody else have another question? Another scenario, anything that you're just not 100% on or feel like you could use some advice from either? On that same note, if anybody feels like they have an answer to one of these questions, feel free to also raise your hand or shoot me a message on here, and I'm happy to open it up. Give it another minute, and then also, Grand Vice Regent asked you added to the first question about people feeling the power differential or feeling embarrassed, kind of to what I had said before too. If it's not something that you feel like you would want to act that way, whether it be in front of your dean, the Grand Regent, police, news, anything, it probably isn't the best idea. So that can kind of take that step back, think things through a little more and say, okay, this person could be offended by this, so why even be in that situation in the first place? So, okay. Any other last questions or anything that anybody would like to add? Jason or Christy, that goes for you guys as well if you'd like to say a few words if you want to. If not, no worries. Okay, seems like, oh, got a question. Had a question. Oh, there we go. Christy said she's good. There we go. Okay. So, Carly, Jacqueline, any last words from you guys?
Yeah, I think we have one more slide if you just want to show it.
Oh,
it has my
you're right.
email
Sorry about
on it. If you guys want any other resources from the Pledge Development Committee, feel free to shoot me an email. We're looking at having some more webinars in the future. If you have a topic you want covered or really anything that you want the Pledge Development Committee to serve you, feel free to shoot me an email and I'd be happy to start working on something and see what we can do to serve you guys.
Jacqueline, anything else you'd like to add?
Pretty much just to sum everything up, if you guys are ever hesitant or worried that something is violating our policy or that something will maybe happen, just reach out and talk to someone, whether it's your GCD or another regent in a different chapter, your province leaders, really anyone. Just make sure that you do reach out to someone so you can be proactive in the process.
Yeah. In wrapping up for me here, just like as the two had said, first, as Carly said, same thing goes for the Collegiate Development Committee, myself, all other members of the International Executive Committee. We're here as your resources. We are here to serve you and answer your questions, clarify anything that we can, or just give some advice, give some feedback, generate some ideas with you as well. Yeah, so that being said, I think that just in my closing statement is that you always get the risk management talk and you always get some ways to best practices for pledging, and everybody has the mentality of, oh, it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen to me. But if you put yourself in these situations, eventually something will come up of it. So being proactive, being responsible, thinking about it ahead of time, and just thinking of ways that you can better your brotherhood and what's truly going to strengthen your brotherhood for the future. I would just say that the real goal of pledging is to set up lifelong brothers, have them learning their traditions, learning about the fraternity, learning what it is, how it works, and having that mindset of a goal and having the mindset of building the best professionals that we can be is what's going to carry you through pledging and help guide you to create some of the better events and create some of the better situations and instill the right ideas from pledges right from the beginning. So if we have nothing else, I think that wraps it up for tonight. Thank you all for attending. As I said, this will be posted online at kappa-psi.com/webinars in a couple days. So keep an eye out for that. And if you do have any questions beforehand, afterhand, or at any time, feel free to reach out to all three of us. Thank you very much for attending. I think this went really well. So have a great one, everybody. Happy rushing and pledging, and best of luck to you all.